Hey guys, Speed here, and today I'm bringing you the major changes from Gameplay Update 7.21. I'm very excited for this patch, as all of you probably are as well, so let's get straight into it. So the first thing I want to note is the movement speed buffs for melee heroes. I find this one very interesting because melee heroes can often be very strong in lane simply because they can buy a stout shield. Now, in addition with the stout shield, a lot of these heroes have these movement speed buffs. So Naga Siren, Underlord, Monkey King, Nyx Assassin, Bloodseeker, and Riki all got 5. Alchemist, Dragonite, and Meebo all got 10. And most impressively, Legion Commander, Lycan, Lifestealer, Spen, Ursa, and Wraith King got 15. What we're seeing with this change is that these specific melee heroes in lane will have the ability to close the gap on ranged heroes. Also, in addition, ranged heroes with 295 movement speed and above now have 5 less movement speed. So altogether, this is a huge change. I think what we're going to notice is that a lot of ranged heroes are going to struggle a little bit more, maybe even a lot more, in the side lanes because of these movement speed changes. The next important change we have is Battle Fury. Percentage damage bonus against non-hero units changed to be a fixed amount matching Quelling Blade. Previously, Battle Fury had percentage damage, which made the item incredible for certain heroes when farming. Now that it's just matching Quelling Blade, it's not nearly as good. However, you'll still get the cleave and farm extremely quickly. Now getting into one of the most broken items of the patch, Crimson Guard. So Crimson Guard last patch was bought nearly every single game in addition with Vlad's. So what they did to nerf it was they nerfed Buckler. So the buildup is not nearly as good. Buckler now only activates for 15 seconds instead of 25. In addition, the recipe for Crimson Guard was increased from 600 to 750. What I will say is this item is still incredibly powerful against physical damage lineups. Having a 60 damage shield is still incredibly powerful in the correct situation, so I don't expect this item to go anywhere. An extremely interesting change for the patch that provides a little bit of an interesting play that you can make is Iron Branch cast range being increased from 200 to 400. This means that if someone's about to run into the trees and hide and just keep moving in and out, you can plant the tree from 400 units, which is quite far. So if someone's running into the trees, definitely keep in your mind that you can plant a branch and block off their pathway. And for probably one of the biggest changes of the patch, one of the hardest nerfs of this patch, Vladimir's offering no longer uses headdress nor provides its HP regen and stats. It now requires a 525 gold recipe. This is a huge deal. Headdress was one of the main reasons Vladimir's became popular, in my opinion. The item was very expensive a few patches ago, but it got buffed so that it was cheap. So the build-up for Vladimir's was incredible. You could start the lane very early on with a headdress, have great HP regen, pretty solid stats, and continue building it up. But now, Vladimir's has a recipe, which obviously isn't that great. You can't buy any HP regen item for the lane, you have to go for lifesteal, which really isn't that great for some heroes. Now, let's get into the heroes. So the first interesting changes we'll see is in Alchemist. Alchemist received quite a big buff in his early game ability to attack heroes and get from camp to camp. He has a movement speed buff, which is great because you're constantly running around from side camps to lane. In addition, you have a base agility buff from 16 to 22, so your attack speed is quite increased. In addition, with the attack speed buff through agility, Chemical Rage base attack time has improved by quite a bit, especially in level 1. So a level 6 Alchemist will have quite high agility. In addition, it will have better base attack time when in Chemical Rage, so you'll farm camps extremely quickly. However, to compensate for this, clearly seeing that they don't want to make Alchemist overpowered, they made Unstable Concoction talents not nearly as good. From 8 seconds to 7 seconds, and the level 20 Concoction now adds the damage to the max instead of the base, so you can't throw out like a barely charged Concoction and have it do an absurd amount of damage. You do have to wait now, which is a big deal. Next we have Arc Warden. Arc Warden received buffs to his Spark Wraith and Tempest Double, pretty much making both of them a little bit better. Spark Wraith now does 30 more damage at max level, which is quite good considering you stack them, and Tempest Double lasts for 2 seconds longer at each level, which is a big deal because the double would often run out a little bit short of getting the kill. One ability that has confused me for quite a bit now is Enfeeble. Banes were completely skipping it in the recent major. Now they buffed the attack speed slow, and made the mana cost only 50 mana at level 1. This means Enfeeble is a lot better of a level 1 spell, and I'm curious to see if Banes will start taking this level 1 to zone out opponents, as they will be able to barely attack back, and it's only a 4-second downtime. In addition, Fiend Strip was increased from 5 to 6 seconds. This is quite a big deal, as an entire second of stun is massive. If something like Fisher was increased by a second, it would be a massive deal. So you can put it on to Fiend's Grip, and it definitely can make the difference when killing a tanky unit. One of my favorite changes of this patch was to Bat Rider. Firefly now grants a percentage movement speed bonus. However, the duration was reduced. In order to compensate for the duration reduction, the cooldown was also reduced, so you can pretty much use Firefly more often, but not for as long. What is cool though, when you have Firefly maxed out, you get a 13% movement speed bonus. This helps you maneuver in and out of the fights, as well as actually catch people with your lasso when you don't have a blink dagger. Beastmaster was definitely one of the scariest offlaners of last patch. Now the Hawks are actually killable, thank god. It would pretty much take all game to just kill one Hawk, so they're not nearly as strong, pretty much halved at all levels. Inner Beast was reduced by 5 at all levels, which definitely matters. I don't think it kills the hero. In fact, I actually think this hero is still pretty good. You still have the ability to block camps with Hawk. You still have the boars, which are just as strong, just with a little bit of an attack speed nerf because of Inner Beast. But there's still definitely a lot of viability to this hero, and I would not expect to see him completely phased out. A short but impactful change was to Bristleback. Now Vicious Nasal Goo is only 12 mana at level 1 compared to the 25 it used to be. This means Nasal Goo is a very nice value point for farming, as you can spam it to keep up your stacks, but not run out of mana because of it. Another very impressive hero of last patch was Centaur Warrunner. The only change he got was that Retaliate no longer gains charges while it was active. There were certain points in the game where Centaur could constantly have his 13 Retaliate stacks up, so now this won't be the case. However, I don't think this is enough to phase this hero out. The fact that he can just get damage during the laning stage for no mana cost is pretty insane, and I wouldn't expect this hero to go away. Next up we have Chaos Knight. Seems like they're really trying to make Chaos Knight a hero. They reduced Chaos Strike to 4 seconds cooldown at all levels, which means that you can use it to lifesteal in the landing stage. However, they nerfed the level 1 lifesteal. So I don't really know how I feel about this, because I don't think the hero can farm nearly as fast as a lot of the other carries still, and I don't think it's strong enough in lane. They didn't do enough to really have its own niche, and I think this hero will still stay at the bottom of the tier list. Next up we have Chen. When I read over Chen's changes originally, I was a little bit concerned. I'm not exactly sure why they would make the bonus damage quite poor at level 4 compared to what it used to be. However, it does give double bonus damage to non-hero units. So what this means is that you can throw your buff onto a unit in the laning stage and it will be quite strong. You could give any creep 20 damage, including the ones that hit really quickly, which is pretty nice. I'm a little bit afraid because I think one of the major benefits of Chen was that he would give his carries 80 damage at level 4. You really don't want to give this ability to your creeps. You want to be giving it to cores, so it's quite concerning. I think this is going to make this hero completely irrelevant, to be honest, even though the duration was increased. Next, one of the coolest changes of the patch in my opinion. Battery Assault cast point has been completely removed. This is a huge deal. It might seem very minimal, but the cast time on Battery Assault would pretty much be the difference of catching someone or not in a crazy amount of the situations. The fact that you can just walk up to somebody or hide behind a tree and instantly pull out a Battery Assault means that your chase potential is exponentially better. This is definitely one of the best catch spells in the game now, because the cast point would provide this like 0.5 second gap where people could disengage with you if you did not originally catch them in cogs. In addition, Rocket Flare was reduced from 50 mana to 35 at level 1. However, it does go back up to 50, but it's quite good, and maybe you can use it for last hits. This is definitely a better offlaner in that case. Crystal Maiden got some of the silliest changes. She gets 10 armor while channeling her freezing field. However, it still can be easily cancelled, and she probably will still not have much of an HP pool, so I don't really see this doing much for her. Arcane Allied mana regen also got reduced, so I don't see why they would do this. I think this is kind of silly. Poor Crystal Maiden. Dark Willow got really nice changes. Bramble Maze now costs only 100 mana at level 1, and is only a 25 second cooldown. This is kind of reminiscent of the very strong Bramble Maze, what it used to be, and I think this actually could push Dark Willow back into the meta a little bit. The fact that you can spam Bramble Mazes in the early game definitely is a great change for this hero. Next up we have Dazzle. I don't really know why Dazzle got nerfed, to be honest. I guess it's still pretty popular, but it was definitely falling off throughout the major. A lot of the best teams were not really even considering the hero, if I'm not mistaken, so I'm afraid that the hero is going to once again become irrelevant like it used to be. Dragon Knight is one of the most buffed heroes of this patch in my opinion. He got a buff of 10 movement speed at all levels, which is great for melee heroes, especially a hero like Dragon Knight that can often feel like he's lacking some chase. So in addition, Dragon Blood got quite a big buff. You get 1 extra health regen at level 2, which is quite nice, and 3 at level 4, so it's an overall quality of life change for Dragon. Next up we have Enchantress. I think Enchantress is going to be a top tier support potentially. I could be over exaggerating, but these changes are really cool. Enchant is only a 22-second cooldown now at level 1, and it lasts for 26 seconds. This means that you can keep the same creep alive for a long period of time, which is a big deal because the old Enchantress could not do that. In addition, it's only 40 mana. This means that this spell is not going to take a toll on your mana pool, and you can keep the same creep alive. In addition, it scales incredibly. It goes down to the same 10-second cooldown and lasts for 80 seconds. Now just to cover one of the more popular heroes of the previous patch, Grimstroke. Phantom's rend damage got reduced quite heavily, pretty much by like 45 to 60 at all levels, which is a big deal. In addition, Inkswell, the mana costs 30 more at level 1, definitely hurting the overall sustainability of Grimstroke in the laning stage. In addition, a 6% movement speed nerf at level 1, which is huge. It means you're not nearly as fast in the laning stage. However, I think this hero is still pretty good. And now for one of the most confusing changes of the entire patch, Io. Io has been changed so much that it is now temporarily removed from Captain's mode. The first change is that Tether now transfers health and mana even when Io is at max HP and mana pool. This is a really big deal. It means that you can just eat a tango and let your core tank. You don't have to put yourself in danger at all. You can just constantly heal at full HP, which definitely matters. Now Overcharge is more of an ability than a toggle. Pretty much it has a 10-second downtime now, it lasts for 8 seconds and has a 18-second cooldown. However, it does not cost you your HP when you're using it, or your mana. In addition, the attack speed it gives was buffed, and the damage reduction was also heavily buffed, making this a much better level 1 spell in my opinion. It has a ton of value in the laning stage, making it an even better spell in the laning stage in my opinion. And one of the hugest changes, Relocate, is once again a cast delay spell instead of channeling, meaning that you can move around when using it. This is a huge deal. It means you can hide in the trees and position and get into position when it is channeling. Even though they did increase the delay, I think this is a lot better of a spell again. In addition, the cooldown was reduced by 40 seconds at level 1. This is what it was when I was considered completely broken. In addition, at level 3, it's 60 seconds. I really don't understand why they did this. I think this hero is more broken than it previously was. I could be mistaken. I'm not the hugest of IO players, but when I read this, I see a completely broken hero. Next up, we have Lich. When I first looked at Lich's changes, I was like, oh great, now Frost Shield isn't nearly as good. But I really think this spell is actually quite broken still. It's going to be maxed out first in almost every single game, so it's barely changed in my opinion. It's just not as good in the laning stage, but it's still really good, right? A 20% slow in the laning stage is often more than enough to catch up the heroes. So it's still really good because it didn't get changed in its damage reduction. I think Lich is still incredibly broken. Lifestealer is quite a bit better in lane now. I'm not going to go into depth about this hero because there's nothing to go in depth about, but pretty much he's just a lot faster and had got an armor increase, so he's quite a bit scarier in the laning stage. Next up, we have Medusa. Medusa is probably one of the most annoying heroes to play against because at some point in the game, she'll just outcarry you in almost every single game, especially in pubs. So they nerfed her by quite a bit in my opinion. First off, Mystic Snake no longer bounces to spell immune units. In addition, she got a lot of talent changes, and talents are something that made Medusa extremely broken. As a base hero, she's not that incredible, but with the talents, she's pretty absurd. First off, her level 10 damage talent nerfed by a little bit. Mystic Snake Mana Steal also got nerfed by a little bit, but still really good. However, the biggest change to Medusa was that her level 20 talent is no longer 700 mana, but a Mystic Snake cooldown talent. The Mystic Snake cooldown talent is actually really good, but the level 20 power spike for Medusa was often when she was at her peak, as you could get to level 20 quite quickly and be a lot stronger than pretty much every other carry. However, now you have to get to level 25 to get 1000 mana, and it's in combination with split shot useless modifiers, so you can't get both of these anymore, which was when Medusa just felt absolutely incredibly broken in the late game. So I think Medusa is still pretty good, but you had to wait a little bit longer for her to come online. So if you follow this channel at all, you know that I love Nature's Prophet, and I think he got some of the best buffs actually. Now you can Sprout and Eat a Tree, which gives you 2 times the regen. Sprout is only 70 mana at level 1, so it's quite effective. In addition, you have this amazing level 20 talent now that gives you an overall 25% cooldown reduction. Now your ultimate is a lot more scary, as it's then a 45-second cooldown. In addition, you can spawn treants more often and teleport more often. OD is definitely a broken hero, especially at the Chongqing Major. It was shown that it's just a broken hero currently, and I actually don't think these changes change anything. A little bit disappointed actually, because I think this hero is still just broken as ever. The only thing that got nerfed pretty much was that your multiplier is now 8, 9, 10 instead of 9, 10, 11. So I don't think its ultimate was necessarily why it was broken. I think it's because Astral is a great laning stage spell. You'll never run out of mana because of Equilibrium. You can farm stacks as well as just run through jungle camps. So I would definitely still expect to see ODs everywhere. Just because I think it's funny, Pudge got a 6 damage increase to his base damage. So maybe he's a mid laner. I'm going to say no, but that's alright. One of the most impactful changes, in my opinion, is the buff to Shadow Demon's Shadow Poison. Pretty much, Shadow Demon just got an overall mana buff. Soul Catcher is only 50 mana at level 1 now, so it's a pretty decent level 1 spell. But what is most important was Shadow Demon was considered broken around like the Luna patch, when Shadow Demon Luna and like Shadow Demon Terrorblade, Shadow Demon Morphling were like all popular. At that time, Shadow Poison was only 35 mana, so they reversed it back to what it was. And I think this is a huge deal. It still scales up to 50, however, so it's a little bit awkward because you still want to max it out. However, what this does do is give Shadow Demon a little bit of an option early into the laning stage. You actually can spam Shadow Poison now and not just immediately run out of mana. Slark was getting picked quite a bit, and the major change was that Pounce and just no longer does damage. Pounce damage would often be the nudge that could let you move from target to target and especially clean up supports, but now you just don't have that damage, so pretty big nerf to Slark in my opinion. Spen got a base movement speed increase by 15, which is a huge deal, making him pretty scary in the early laning stage, especially level 1. I think this hero is still really good. However, it was getting picked as a support like crazy, and Warcry at level 4 was broken. Now it is based on your strength. Heroes will no longer get nearly as much shield health as they used to, but I still think this hero is quite good against physical damage comps. I don't think it will be picked every single game. I don't even want to talk about the next change, but Techi's got a mana buff to his ultimate. Let's move on. So Tidehunter was definitely one of the top tier offlaners as well at the major, and what they did was just make Anchor Smash a little bit worse at levels 1, 2, and 3, and I don't think this is nearly enough to phase the hero out. I think it's still going to be one of the top tier offlaners. Next up we have Timbersaw. Timbersaw has a lot of text on the screen for his changes, but to sum it up simply, you can get more reactive armor stacks, but they're not nearly as good. So it's a slight nerf, but I still think the hero is good in the games where he's good. You know, in the games where there's a lot of like melee strength heroes, it's definitely still really good to pick Timber. Next up we have Tiny and Treant. I just want to gloss over these heroes because I don't think they're changed too much. Pretty much Avalanche is just not nearly as good as a spell. AoE reduction, making it worse in the laning stage, and a cooldown reduction at level 1. Pretty much just this hero is just worse in the laning stage, as well as his level 15 talent that was probably his best talent, being the avalanche damage, was nerfed. Definitely hurts Tiny quite a bit as a support. Treant, your Scepter now makes your Overgrowth do damage, but in high MMR, especially pro games, Treants would never get the Scepter, so this is definitely better for pubs, but I don't think this makes it the hero much better. However, Living Armor is a better spell now, increasing by 5 at each level, so it goes 5, 10, 15, 20, which makes it quite a good spell at level 4. It's definitely really good at level 4 now. However, I think this hero is still pretty irrelevant in the laning stage. Next up, we have Tusk. I actually feel really bad for Tusk because I think this hero is pretty... I'm not going to say bad. I don't want to say bad, but I don't think Tusk is nearly as good as what he was. Tusk was just extremely good at level 1 because Tag Team was just a top tier spell. Now it is 9 seconds longer on cooldown, as well as the mana cost is 30 more. Maybe the mana cost doesn't matter because you can't use it as much in the first place, but the fact that you have to wait 9 seconds in the laning stage is so long. So I don't expect Tusk to be a first phase hero. However, maybe it's a decent offlaner? I'm not so sure, but you definitely need levels so that your tag team cooldown is not nearly as long. Undying was super popular with Medusa this patch and a few other team comps, and the major change to Undying was that you do not get Tombstone on death at level 15 now. So that was definitely one of the biggest power spikes for Undying, and you just don't get it anymore. So pretty huge nerf to Undying. Next up, we have a really interesting change, and that would be Ursa. He gets a 15 movement speed buff, which is massive, and you'd be like, oh wow, this makes this hero really good. However, they made Fury Swipes worse at level 1, so I think this makes the hero better because overall you're faster, which is a huge deal for a hero that gets kited so easily, but I don't think this puts the hero over the edge. And to nearly wrap it all up, we're going to go over Witch Doctor. Maledict is now closer to its former self, where the cooldown is not absurdly long at level 1 and specifically 2 when Maledict is quite good. Maledict is much better at level 2 than level 1. I think Witch Doctor is quite good in the laning stage now because you have a very big buff to the cooldown of Maledict. And finally, to wrap it all off, we have Zeus, and I'm a little bit confused because I believe what this means is that your static field now applies even to units hit by your ultimate, which makes your ultimate better, which could be nice. It could be the tipping point for certain kills. And if you don't want to read it, I'll quickly read it for you. It's static field has been reworked. It now affects enemies directly affected by your abilities, no longer has a range, so it is not an AoE spell. So what it means is that it's a little bit worse in teamfights when you're in the middle of everyone. However, it is better for like picking off heroes with your ultimate. That's kind of how I read it. Definitely an interesting change. I don't think it changes Zeus that much, but definitely an interesting one at that. Alright, thank you guys for going over patch 7.21. If you felt like I didn't cover any of the important changes, feel free to comment them in the comment section below. I did my best to pick out what I felt was most important, and I think this patch is definitely going to be an interesting one. However, I would expect a lot more buffs to heroes because I didn't see any standout heroes. I hope to be proven wrong. Alright, thank you guys for watching.